everybody, to another Link Up Nesby Entrepreneurship Podcast YouTube series. This is going to be episode 9. We're doing the Zoom now, so this is our second official Zoom interview on the platform, but it's still going to be the best content there is. So I'll introduce my co-host down here. I'll let him introduce himself. Say what's up, my man.
Yeah, what's going on, everybody? My name is Jayton Harps. I'm the Nesby SIG Entrepreneurship President here in San Diego, even though I'm in Vegas right now. Yes, we have a special guest today, Miss Julissa. Is that how we say it?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, how you doing?
Good. I love this dynamic. There's nothing more that represents hustling during quarantine than somebody's driving, somebody in San Diego, somebody in LA. This is great.
Hey, this is what we do. So yeah, Miss Julissa Prado. Can I put the Prado?
Oh, he really lives
Prado.
in San Diego, doesn't he?
Oh yeah, I've been down here. I'm black to kid. I tell you, look, I done been.
Real.
I think I got some like Cuban or something in my family too. Yeah, every time when I go to the island, I be like, it look like my uncle right there. I was in Cuba like. And they was like, I'm like, what's up?
And you kind of have that swag from San Diego, I feel like.
Yeah, I got that. I'm comfortable there with the, with the vibe. So, as you see, man, this is a free flowing forum for us to just chop it up, be real, So I'll do a brief introduction to Miss Julissa. I met her, we met, I graced her presence. She graced my presence back in San Diego. We were both college students in San Diego. I was at San Diego State playing basketball and furthering my engineering career. And she's coming down. I remember you fresh from like the Valley. I think you came down with like, I think you knew Tim or DJ.
Yeah, well, I went to elementary. My only friends that I knew from back home all went to San Diego State. So I knew like T.I. and DJ Gay and like all of those people from back home too. Yeah,
shout out to the Aztecs and some of the brotherhood there. Hope everybody's doing well. Yeah. So yeah, we we met. UCSD didn't have as much flavor as San Diego State. So
no color.
None at all, but always
soul there.
Always loved the energy, your hustle, even from back then. I could tell you had a great vibe, a great spirit. We just stayed in contact right through social media throughout the years. I don't know if we ever caught up in LA at the same time, but I know you ended up transferring right to like UCLA.
Yeah, UCLA. Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, you transferred to UCLA. But we always just kept in touch in social media and whatnot. So that's my story. That's our background and how I met her. So I'm super proud to say I seen you from the beginning and to be behind the journey and all that. So it's a special guest for that, because it's like real started from the bottom. Like, we used to be in college broke as a joke.
Yeah, eating 99-cent Jack in the Box tacos.
Oh, so fire. Yeah, so to hear talking about business, our growth, our endeavors. So I'll transition that to you. So pick us up from UCLA into your hair journey in the business of Rizo's curls.
Yeah, so after UCLA, I went to Wake Forest in North Carolina to get my master's in business. While I was there, I interned for PepsiCo, and right out of graduate school, I started working for Nestle back in LA. And this entire time, like even throughout high school and even throughout college, like I was always making my own concoctions for my hair. I just grew up in a family where, especially my grandmother, she always taught me to turn to the earth, turn to plants as medicine, and to care for my body and my health, my hair, everything. So it was really easy for me to kind of create my own like concoctions in order to do my hair, because pretty much everything out there that I would find would either be too heavy or leave my hair too crunchy, or it wasn't the right fit. So I would do that, and then I would find, especially growing up in predominantly Latino neighborhoods, like San Diego, like you mentioned, it's very, very, a lot of Latinos there too. I would meet so many people around me that had wavy, curly, coily textures, but so many went through great lengths to straighten it. And I would kind of share my little ways of doing my hair with these people that had never worn their hair natural before. And then it would work, and it would just like keep going. And it's crazy because even till this day, the majority of our customers aren't people that, they are people that are wearing their hair natural for the first time, because my products, when I decided to actually go to a lab and make them professionally, my focus with my products were to create products that enhance and extra define your curls. So if like you had maybe kind of wavy hair and it was really damaged, and like half of it curled, half of it wasn't curling because you've been damaging it for so long, the product helped make it even curlier and helped it match so that you could transition and it not look so mismatched on your head.
That's tight. That's tight. So I think that kind of leads us into that second question. It was in regards to your product, right? So obviously you said you were in a lab or you had to go through. So it's not an all natural product. It has some chemicals and things that help make that.
Yeah. So what I like to say is like, it's a beautiful combination between nature and science. Like it's very much natural. We have like over 90% natural ingredients in our product, but in order to make sure that, for example, any product, anything out in the market or anything that you have that has water in it, you need some type of like safe preservative that you can use. You can use science to like safely use like a synthetic ingredient, for example, to make a preservative so that it doesn't grow mold, doesn't grow germs after just a couple of days. Because if you don't have these like, few ingredients to preserve the product, it will literally, it's not very functional. Like you won't be able to use it, like you will have to refrigerate it and it will go bad very quickly.
Yeah. And I think we'll get to that a little bit later when we talk about, distribution and moving product. You have to factor that into your process. Like, if you're does it have a shelf life,
Exactly.
and things like that. And that can affect your price point, which is another question. But so about the process then in the lab, the chemical part, right? I'm curious about that. So what were some steps, give us like a timeline of that, because I know it can be, because I know I was talking to, you remember my friend Zoe, right? Mm-hmm. So me and him were talking about like a skincare type of line, like wipes. We were looking in like these form of wipes. Yeah. And I was starting to research that, and I was like, dang, okay. I was trying to find like a chemist, somebody. So I didn't get that far. I kind of got there and I was like, yeah, it's a deep world and all that. So tell me, I'm sure you went a little further into that. Yeah. So if I had a product that I wanted to grow and make last long and have a shelf life and know that science, how was that?
Mm-hmm. So when I was making my own concoctions at home throughout like high school and college, etc., the main reason why I decided to take my products to a lab and try to create, my formulas with a chemist was specifically because of that. Was because it wasn't functional. It was annoying it going bad after if it was annoying having to refrigerate. It was annoying having it going bad so quickly and stuff. So it would literally like start smelling, and then it's like if anything that's natural, and especially with water, like you're gonna counter that. So that was my main reason why I even wanted to turn to a lab to begin with. So especially with like skincare, I know there's a lot of like smaller skincare companies, or even like that are growing to be bigger, that till this day don't even, a lot of them like do them from home. Like they don't have a lab. And the reason why is because they're more like oil based, and they're able to, they don't have that issue. But like, for example, like the wipes, which is majority, you're going to need water in order to make it, activate. Like that was, that might be a little bit harder. but pretty much it was a 4-year process, and I didn't think it was going to be so crazy. But I think for me, that's part of the beauty of why my products work so well and did such a good job and addressed this need in the market for something that didn't just hold, didn't just moisturize, but literally enhanced and took your texture and made it even curlier or made it even more defined. Was because no one really spends that much time. Like, who has, you know, most of these big companies are like, what is the ROI on me spending 4 years to come up with these formulas? Like, there's no way. But for me, I went through multiple chemists. I went through different manufacturers. In the beginning, I remember like the majority of my chemists were white men. And I found really quickly, and then even like the labs that I was working with, I was like, we're not speaking apples to apples. They just didn't understand. They kept sneaking bad chemicals that I was very much against into my product, because I still had that, for me, especially growing up, like working with natural ingredients, I understand the power of them. Like, I understand that like every single natural ingredient that I have, it's for a reason. It's because it's going to help me have a healthy scalp. It's because it's going to strengthen and repair, you know, this damage in my hair. Is going to, you know, there's a purpose for it to be there. So by them sneaking in carcinogens or ingredients that are literally directly correlated with causing cancer, or that if you, anything that you put on your scalp gets absorbed into your bloodstream, like, what, you know, I don't want any of that in there. So they kept doing that. So it wasn't until I pretty much went to it was a Nigerian owned lab. The chemist, she was the first female chemist I worked with, finally, because it's unfortunately in STEM, I feel like there's just such a lack of diversity within that realm in general. So I remember the moment I met her, Jamaican, you know, Black woman, and she also brought this like immigrant culture and experience of like, you know, growing up so directly with nature and understanding the power of plants and how they are medicine for us. So after that, I feel like it was such a really good partnership, and we were able to bring learnings from my culture, from their culture, and we kind of like meshed and created a perfect formula for what I was looking for.
That's beautiful. And do you mind giving them a shout out and naming the lab, or are you okay with giving us that? Or
I don't know if I can. Her name is Jerry. my chemist. Her name is Jerry. Out here in LA, Gardena. So
Jerry in LA, Gardena. If you want to find out more, you're gonna have to follow Julissa, follow Rizo's Curls, tell them you watched the interview, and that's how you get the key. Okay, that's the secret. Woo. You know, you gotta put in work to get that. How about that? Don't matter of fact, yeah, that's we not X that out. You gotta, if you really want to know, that's what you do.
Yeah.
You know you're about some business. But hey Jay, I'll let you ask the next question. I think that was your question, number 3.
You said number 3, right? Yeah.
About the lock method. I didn't know what you.
Oh yeah, man. Hey, somebody asked me that question. So, what types of products do you have in your line? The lock method, oil and cream. I don't know.
That's what asked you.
I know. So pretty much what they mean, what they're talking about is like sometimes, for example, for certain textures, you can put oil first and then you put cream. Some of them, like you cannot use oil until later. Like, depending on your texture, you require different, different styling needs. So the products that I have, it's a shampoo, a deep conditioner, a refresh and detangle spray, and a curl defining cream right now. And then we have hair accessories like a diffuser, a flexi detangling brush, like, different things like that too. We're currently coming out with a lot more new products this year. I'm wanted to come out with more, but there's just so much behind the scenes that is really difficult that kept me from being able to come out with more products faster. But that initial 4 products was like the wash and go, and it was more cream based. We are going to be coming out with some oils that are more for like scalp and like hot oil treatments and stuff like that, but it's more of like cream based for sure.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah, that's some real game though. Like so if someone picks up your product, say for me, right? Because I'm about to go get me some, right? My daughter has curly hair, and I want her hair to look like yours, right?
I'll send you some. You're so cute.
So tell me what I need to do.
Y'all relationship is just.
I know we're so man, it's so much stuff I don't even post and put out there. It's so dull, man. I'm just happy all the time. She's so funny. Jaden's seen it. He's come over to the house and see how we interact.
Yep. It's so
I know.
nice.
I always say, like, I feel like men have never seen a certain kind of love. Like, I've never felt that kind of love until they have a daughter, until they feel like a daughter's love. Because I know for me, with like my dad, I know my mom even says it all the time. She's like, what? Like, I had never seen this man do the things he would do, like play fake telephone, like write love letters. Like, that was a little girl. I would like legit write him love letters and be like, you didn't write me one back?
Oh, yeah.
There he
that's
was.
That's her coming down the pipeline. She Dad, you didn't do this. You silly dad. You how silly. I'm like, oh man. I'm like, let me live. But good. So walk me through the process as I get the products for her. So it sounds like the wash and go method. Tell me about
that. So what's amazing about little kids in general that I'm a big proponent of, like, especially with children, you don't need a lot. Like, their hair is so healthy. It's so pure. It's usually like has barely any damage. Like, all they really need is like a little bit of moisture, some detangling, and then that's it. Like, I feel like sometimes parents overthink the process, but with kids, like, it's less is more. So with them, that's part of why we made the Refresh and the Tangle spray. It's literally just like a spray that is thick enough. So it's thick enough so that that's all you need to put in there, and it moisturizes and it makes the detangling process super easy, and it leaves it really moisturized. But it's it's thin enough so that it's easily sprayed, like on a kid especially. And it spreads easily, and you can use it like every day between wash days, so that you don't have to like, because that's so coming into this industry too, there's so many learnings that I feel like I would call them straight hair tendencies, things that people do for hair that is for straight hair. It's not for hair with texture. And one of them being like washing your hair every day. Like that's for straight hair. Sure, that might work and that might be fine, but usually for any hair with texture, it's not good to wash your hair every day. It takes away all the oils. Like, hair is it's not meant to be washed that often. Even how you cut textured hair, a lot of people cut straight hair. You're supposed to cut straight hair wet. Textured hair, you're not supposed to cut it wet. Like, there's just so many unlearnings that need to be done. And even in the whole industry, like when you go to cosmetology school, a lot of these stylists, all they teach them about textured hair is how to straighten it. They never teach them anything other than that, because the norm in all of society is straight hair. So there's like a lot of unlearning that people have to do to understand hair, etc. So for example, with your daughter, like, literally she doesn't even need to be shampooed that often, because especially kids, like, they don't need shampoo that often either. Like, maybe like, just, and then I tell people that too. I'm like, your scalp, like, shampoo, the purpose of shampoo is for your scalp, right?
Yeah.
And that's pretty much the purpose of shampoo. It's to make sure that you're, cleaning your scalp. And sometimes, like, depending on people's scalps, if people have drier scalp, like, you shouldn't be shampooing that often. Like, you don't need it. You can co-wash, which means all you do is just use a conditioner on the rest of your hair. You're just like detangling it in the shower, and then you go on with your day. You don't even need the shampoo at that moment. So that's one thing. And a lot of the time, like, people don't understand, like, conditioners for your hair, it's not necessarily for your scalp, because a lot of the time conditioners have really thick creams and oils that might clog your pores in the same way as you can clog your face with like really thick creams. And every scalp is different. Like, there's different scalp needs for it's the same way how like your skin on your face is
Yeah.
different skin needs, so does your scalp. So with her, like very, you know, easy shampooing, and then a conditioner is always good for especially for kids, because it makes the detangling process super easy. Like we have a flexi brush that as you brush it, I'll show you. Hold on.
Hey, here we go.
Yeah,
I
see
think
an example.
I've seen them before. My cousin, it's like little loose, like brushes or whatever. This is good game though. See, this is a lot of good knowledge.
Yeah, so pretty much like what helps with especially hair that's like tighter or gets tangled easily. So like for example, us, we have this detangling brush, so that when you're brushing hair, it like flexes and maneuvers so that it doesn't pull it hard. Because that's another thing that I hate, that like kids are led to believe like, oh, if you have like non-straight hair, like it's gonna be a pain. It's gonna be painful every time to detangle my hair. It doesn't have to be that way. And then also like a lot of people, again, another straight hair tendency, people thinking like you brush hair from the top to the bottom, like that's only for straight hair. Like for everybody else's hair, you start at the bottom and then you work your way up to the root. So yeah, that's.
I'm in business now. Hey, look, I was already really good, like low key, at least confident, at very least confident. Now now you put some technique behind that. Oh
yeah. So usually with kids, like when their hair has the conditioner in it, that's when you detangle. When they get out of the shower, you can like, this is the Refresh and Tangle spray. This is a new bottle thing to like, so you see how like, it's literally a spray.
Oh, that's perfect.
But it's like, you see how it's like still thick enough?
It's still, yeah.
So yeah, I would just literally just spray a little bit in their hair. You could detangle again if, you know, you want to. If not, like you can just kind of like put it in their hair, scrunch it, like they're fine. I wouldn't even do more than that. Like we also have a curl defining cream for like if it needs more moisture, but usually with kids, like you don't really need too much. I like to less is more, especially with kids, I think.
Okay, yeah, that's good. I like that. That's very good advice for me and everybody else out there. A lot of those notes I've kind of taken heed with over the last few years. I've learned a lot, and just by following like you, my other homegirl that runs Crown Magazine. I don't know if you run into her yet, from SAC. Damn, I can't believe it's escaping me, but I love following the movement and the journeys. Okay, so the next question, we'll get kind of more into the business side of things. So how did you come about like your price point or pricing? You don't have to give your specific, you know, or just in general, what are some things that, you know, helped you get there?
So in general, people, it's really important to, when pricing anything, to understand all of your costs, understand your variable costs, understand your fixed costs, understanding like what realm you're working in. It's also very important that you understand your industry that you work in. And if you have future goals to be in retail, if you have future goals of distribution in general, you understand what are the players there. Are there distributors that need to take a cut? Are there, you know, brokers that need to take a cut? Or what is the cut for the retailers? What is the, you know, like you have to understand the landscape, not just where you are at that moment, but where you plan to be in the next 10 years, and price your products in a way that allows for you to be in these places in the future. Because if you price it, let's say you price it too low and you leave yourself a small margin, and then you go and you want to be in retail, and then you got to give them 40, them 10, then that, like you just shot yourself in the foot, and you created a business that is not sustainable in those modes of distribution. So it's really important that no matter how small you think you are, how small you're starting, you think very long term and you work the way back when understanding and pricing. And then obviously, like, you know, your price should reflect like your variable cost, like, you know, how much the cost of your product plus the variable costs and etc. I mean, so pretty much like understanding costs is so important, and making sure that you're making enough, and also understanding like what are you competing on. So I tell people this all the time. I'm like, you can't compete on everything. Are you competing on price? Are you competing on quality? Are you competing on convenience? Like what is it that you are, that your product is special for? Because if you're competing on price, then okay, then you need to make sure that your margin is lower, whatever. If you're competing on quality, you're that X's you out on the price point. You know, like you have to understand your demographic and understand like your mission of like, you know, what your you know what your competitive advantage is going to be in whatever industry you're entering.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, that's really good. I'm gonna be doing a workshop or a little presentation for our virtual First Tuesday group. We've been doing these entrepreneurship mixers, and I'm going to do one on intro to business financials 101. So yeah, there's definitely some tidbits I'll take from that. But even just like some of the things I'm going to talk about are just like your own personal costs, right? Like the fact that you worked for a corporation and you had offsets on like your healthcare and things like that, you know what I mean? Or your insurance. And so like also factoring that into, you know, your goals or what you want to take home yourself too, right? Like, hey, I gotta have insurance for myself, for, you know, for the business, like all these different things too, that, you know, you should be aware of as you make those steps and understand how that cuts into your own bottom line. So, next question. So, and talking about, now you have your price point, you have your product there. Talk about negotiating for a wholesale, like for your own self, right? Acquiring your goods. And then also like the distribution part. I know you secured a target distribution. So, you know, talk to us about, I guess, the producing the product side and then also the distribution side once you have it.
Yeah. So I was really lucky in that it's interesting because I feel like so many of the jobs and things that I've done in the past prepared me for what I'm doing now. And I didn't even realize it. Like back then I would be like, why am I doing this position? This is so boring. Or like I would complain and not understand why I was doing what I was doing. And it was crazy because once I started my own business, it all came full circle. I was like, wow, I understand supply chain. I understand operations. I understand literally how distribution works. Like I literally have a commercial driver's license and can parallel park a semi truck if I want to. I literally created routes for these men that were delivering to all these different you know, stores, and I understand the behind the scenes of how the product gets in, how it gets on the shelf, how it sells, how it goes, like what. And and it was crazy because in that time, so straight out of grad school, my very first position with Nestle, I was managing a team of 13 sales reps. The business that I was managing was like over $30 million of business for Nestle. Because all their brands are like, literally Nestle is the world's largest food company. It's the only company that does business in every single country in the entire world, which is just crazy. And the fact that I ended up with them, and then all the brands I was working with were billion-dollar brands. I was working with like DiGiorno, Dryers. I was working with Nesquik, Coffee Mate, like all of these brands. So I was working on this team, and literally my job was to manage the distribution portion of all of these guys and their routes and everything of all the main retailers. So the Ralphs, the Targets, even the drugstores, and understanding the difference and the needs of all the different kinds of retailers out there, the Walmarts. That I was like doing all of that. But my job was to like how to grow sales from even just like, you know, from the ground up. So there's like different ways of you growing business, right? There's especially with retail, there's from behind the scenes, from like a finance standpoint, from a marketing standpoint. And then there's ways that you do it like on the floor, like hands on deck. Like this is the last point of distribution, you know? So that was like my first position. And then my very last position, I was the account manager for literally for all those brands for Nestle for large retail. So I was the person from Nestle that would go and call on the buyers for Target, for whatever, and negotiate, you know, our entire, you know, programming calendar, negotiate what new products come in, what we were taking out, where it's positioned, like, how much we're buying. I was the one doing all the forecasting. The one that was like, this is how much we're going to sell. This is the kind of, this is the sales. So, and then now, like, I'm doing the exact same thing that I was doing then. I would never think that like all those positions that I had in between that life. And even at one point I had to do like a 2-month in supply chain. Another thing that was just so helpful that I had no idea was going to help me until now. So I think that like I had a huge advantage coming into this industry, having worked with them, because I feel like, you know, Target wasn't the only retailer that I met with. There was like other retailers that I was meeting with. And I think that especially when you like first start a business, if you get approached by a big retailer with a big name, you automatically just want to jump on it. You automatically are like, oh my God, yes, I'm going to do anything possible. And I just want to scale. I'm going to take, if they tell me they're going to put me in 1,000 stores, I'm going to do it right away. Da, 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 da. And you don't really think about all the behind the scenes things that could happen that are, you're being taken advantage of, that are going to literally shoot you in the foot later, that could lead to you going bankrupt really quickly. All of the stuff that happens behind the scenes, you know? So for example, because I was already, you know, aware, and I was the one like working these contracts in a very different, very different power dynamic, because as the world's largest food company with Nestle, like there's a very different power dynamic that you have with these retailers than a small business. I knew like what fees, for even something as simple as like what marketing fees were mandatory and which ones are optional, and understanding like, for example, like when working in contracts, I understood spoils. Like, okay, if a product it gets damaged somehow in the back of your store, I send it to your warehouse, to y'all's warehouse, and it gets damaged. Who pays for that? Is it me? Is it you? Like, how does that happen? And I saw, working in that realm, I saw how many small businesses, I would see them, like I would see the buyer, I would see their founder come in and sell to them. They would be so excited. And I would see them like 6 months later, everything getting trashed, them going bankrupt. Why? Because their stuff didn't sell. They had, their contract stated that if it didn't sell in a certain amount of time, they were just going to return everything. And so imagine like a small business taking out a loan, doing all these things to produce, I don't know, 500,000 units of something. And you only have this amount of time. And then there's all these factors that you didn't know that are working against you, like the positioning of where exactly your product is on the shelf. Maybe the timing of when it gets rolled out, maybe the pricing, maybe there's so many factors that you're not aware of that are working against you. And all of a sudden, all that product gets returned to you. Like, and you can't pay that loan back, or you can't pay that back. And not only is it returned to you, but it's returned to you in a condition that is pretty much damaged because of all the back and forth and all the hands on it. Like, what are you going to do? You're out of business. So I think for me, understanding that, I knew that I had to tread really lightly, and that my goal wasn't just distribution everywhere. My goal was to be really, really strategic as to the timing, when I would be ready, and who I would go into retail with for the first time, and what markets I would go into, and at what point I would, and how I would grow to that. And I think that, like, you know, Rizo's Curls could have been in large retail the very first year. We waited until almost 30, we had already been in business a little over 2 years. But like for me and my business, like that was like the timing that I was ready for. Because from the day one, I had been working towards that. And there's so much that people don't realize, like even understanding like something as simple as like, how are you going to get that product? How are you going to store that inventory? Where are you going to store that inventory to make that kind of order? And how are you going to ship it to like, I don't, New Jersey or wherever it is that you're sending it to from wherever you are? Like, how are you going to package it? Like, do you have the proper barcodes? Do you have whatever? So, yeah, I think there's so much that goes on behind the scenes that even from the very beginning is kind of sets small businesses up to fail. And that kind of sets them up to fail because there's just like so much excitement and you try to bite too much at one time. So my biggest recommendation for anybody trying to go into retail is like, don't rush it. Do not rush that process, because at the end of the day, your margins, like, I mean, it depends on like what your, again, like what I went back to, like, what are you competing on? Like, what is your strategy? Because at the end of the day, like the kind of margin that you're going to get by being a direct to consumer and selling from your own website is very different than the kind of margin that you're going to get from large retail, from all these other people taking cuts off your product. So, and if this fails, so like I like to, for Rizos, what I did, I thought of it as two different businesses. My direct to consumer business was one business, and then my retail, wholesale business is a completely separate business. And I thought of this retail business not as a profitable business. I thought of it as a marketing business. My profitable business was over here because this is sturdy and this I can predict more and this I have full control over and there's no other factors that could affect it. So if this dies, I'm still going to be good because this is my plan B and this is going to hold me down. So like, that's the way that I set up my business, is that until this could stand on its own feet, I cannot go here. Because I cannot put all my power and my liability of my business on other entities to make sure that I don't die,
Yeah, that's real. That's a lot of good game right there. I didn't know you had that background in there, and that's always really good. So
yeah, I tell people, I'm like, y'all want to move a 24-foot truck? Because I got you on the parallel parking. Like,
I respect it. Yeah, I'm in production right now. I'm in supply chain, and I'm hyped. I always wanted to be. So I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm about to learn all this stuff.
Yeah, I like the fact that I still have that license. People are like, "What, girl?"
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I might need your help over here. I got palm trees up here. we gotta get cut. Okay, real quick too about just the wholesale side again. So like when you talk about units, right? I know one of the things we were trying to do was like find like the packaging, right? Or find like containers and things like that. Yeah. How's that initial conversation? Is this something you go in and like, I mean, I feel like a lot of those conversations, they're expecting people like to be talking about units, like real units, not like, hey, I need 100 bottles, but they're like, no, we deal in thousands at a time.
Yeah, it's hard. So I feel like for me, so I'm completely self-funded. I don't have any investors. And then what people the misconception about self-funded too, is they think like you have to have that cash. Like, no, you could have a loan. You can have a small business loan. You could have a grant. You could have like, there's so many ways so much funding that can happen behind the scenes to be a self-funded business. It just means that like, I don't give equity to somebody else, it's mine. So that's one. So I think for me, like I saved for a very long time because depending on what industry you're in, the minimums, like what you're talking about, like the quantity minimums are different. So in my business, in the beauty industry, especially in hair care, they're very high. Like we're talking 10,000 units minimum for like everything, for bottling, for label, this, whatever. So or if you want lower, usually like the price is much higher and you can find it, but you would have to source it, not at the big, cause like the big players, all these big businesses that are the sellers from manufacturers or whatever, they usually like, they won't talk to you unless you're talking, unless you meet their minimums. Yeah. And then there's so much that goes into that. So it's like, so you're telling me I need to buy 10,000 minimums. Where are you going to put it? Like, do you have somewhere to store it? And if you have those minimums, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's just like so much that you need to figure out behind the scenes that like, it's not that easy. Like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna buy 10,000. Where the hell are you gonna put it? Like, where is it gonna be?
Yeah, they're just producing it. That's a great point. Like, you know, if you get something, they're like, hey, where you want us to send this to? You're like,
exactly. Like where, like what's going to be the process? And with manufacturers, like where you actually bottle your product, or like who creates the, you know, where you actually create the formula and bottle it, that's not, they're not always the ones that source your ingredients. They're not always the ones that source your bottles, your packaging. Like they're, you know, most of them, a lot of them are just mixing it up, actually cooking it and filling it, putting it in your bottles and sending it to you, you know? So like, so if you're sourcing your own, all these things, like, you know, that's like a lot of like research that has to be done. And not only that, but like also research in safety. So you have to make sure that wherever you're buying your bottle. So another thing that like people don't understand is like with packaging, a lot of this like sustainable packaging, one, it's like really expensive. So small businesses usually can't afford it. And there's like also like an elitist type stigma to it, like being like super green and having like super sustainable packaging. Most of these manufacturers don't have the machinery to even fill these kind of, a lot of these sustainable packaging, right? So then you pretty much can only afford it if you pay for your own machines and your own, like, it's just like, it's not, right now the industry is not set up for that. And it's only if you can afford it, if you have so much freaking money to like do all these things, right? That's one. Number two is like so much of the sustainable packaging, especially when working with natural ingredients, especially oils, like it will dissolve it. Like I know like there's like sugar cane, like there's these like bottles that like people kept being like, why don't you use this sugar cane bottles? I'm like, because that shit will dissolve. Like it's oil that products have oil, like mix oil with sugar cane, that shit will dissolve. Like it's going to literally disintegrate. Or like, or certain kind of packaging, like let's say it's like all recyclable. Like you have to make sure like the materials that the bottle is made of, that is literally recycled plastic. Do you want that like, how is it going to dissolve into your bottle after oil and all this stuff keeps being inside of it? And how, like, you know, there's like so much safety that needs to be behind it, and like so much that the industry still doesn't know, and so much testing that needs to be done, because the last thing you want is like this weird ingredient from your bottle to affect the actual product and the contents inside. So yeah, when it comes to like packaging, I think that there's like such even privilege that exists in being like, oh, it's completely sustainable and this bottling is like so you know, recyclable, and it's made from this plant of blah blah blah, and the spout is a plastic bag. Like what?
Yeah, you had a lot of money to take the time to do the R&D and do that. Even the marketing, everything you're saying to put it out there, like it's money. It's hard. You go from, like I understand it, and just, you know, to summarize it, I see it. It's like you can go from paying, you know, 50 cents a bottle or 25 cents to, if you go sustainable, you might be paying $1 or $2 a bottle. Right?
Exactly.
And it's like, it's just not. It's tough, right? But you know, in the meantime, you know, you got to do what you have to do, and it's business. It's a business, you know, and it's got to do what you have to do. So, okay, two more questions. We have the. I'm gonna ask one more. I'm adding a question, but this is the question before that question. So what is something you learned completely new about the business and the industry you never knew before? Wow, you had a little background there, but just tell me something in the process that you just were like, damn, it's crazy. I wish somebody would have told me, or something.
I think like one of the main things was like understanding like how important it is to know like what your long-term goal of your product is, you know what I mean? And understanding like all the players that exist within it, and understanding like, how do I say this? Like already have a network in as a plan B. So for example, I'll give you an example of like something that happened to me that was hard, that could have led to me the end of my business, but I figured it out. So pretty much like when I never expected the product to do so good so quickly, right? So like it was just me by myself in the beginning, out of like my apartment, and then very quickly we got so many orders to the like it was just one of me. I didn't have a team. I didn't even have a plan B of like, hey, if I get a lot of orders, will you be able to help me, or like any type of other help? And I was working full time with Nestle. So what do you do in that situation? Like you have all these orders and there's only one of you, and like, how are you going to fulfill it? Like, what are you going to, you know what I mean? Like, how are you going to create this? And then not only that, but it's like, I'm only in my small apartment. Like, I don't even have enough space to like all these boxes I need to order for this, like all these things coming in, like, what am I going to do? And for me, I was able to react very quickly because I have a huge family in LA. You know, I have like 13 aunts and uncles. So I have like over like 60 first cousins just in LA. So I was like, literally, they saved my ass completely. Within a day, my uncle in Mid-City that lived down the street from me, he was like, turn my garage into your headquarters, literally, off Washington Crenshaw. My Theo was like, just move in here. I have 3 kids. On the way, pick up your other freaking so many cousins, and all of them are going to be workers. And I literally had like a team of like 10 people working. I had a whole freaking garage headquarters.
Had a little production line going.
Within 24 hours, you know, and like, that's just my like that just like, I was really blessed and lucky to have that kind of family support that was willing to do that, you know? But a lot of people don't have that. So I feel like that's just an example of like thinking ahead in every aspect from the beginning to the end. And that lesson taught me in every aspect of like, okay, I need to always plan B. Like I need to create a worst case scenario and a best case scenario for every action that I take with my business from now on.
Yeah, that's great advice. That's a lot of how I think too. So I got a homegirl I want to connect you with. She's like mid-20s. She just started her skincare line. It's called Glass. It's a really good name. She's really into the packaging and all that. And so you know, she's very similar to where you were actually. And I think she's turning that corner right now. She's working full time. Just her, she's telling me she's getting hundreds of orders a day now. It's picking up pretty quickly. So I think this would be a great time to connect. If you don't mind, you know, after this, I'll connect you to, and maybe just give her a couple of words, because I see a very similar path that you're on, that she may, you know, continue to take. So, and she's in LA too. So I think she's from the Midwest though, so she doesn't have the same resources with the family, but you could definitely give her some insight or some different options that she can explore. Because yeah, that's big scaling, you know. Now I'm sure you got people that you have on payroll that you're paying, or, you know, services. And so that's another important part of business. Like you said, a worst case or a best case. Yeah, that's a best case, right? Because that means you're doing well enough, but you still have to manage it, you know. And understand what goes into that, and 1099s versus a
Exactly,
you know,
and it hits you in the face real quick.
yeah, exactly. So so in the last questions, I just wanted to talk about, like I mentioned earlier, I love your presence on social media, a lot of things you're doing there. So just tell me how you've leveraged social media. I think you do a great job in modern business, right? And having a great presence. So just tell me about, you know, how you've grown in that space, you know, whether it's,
yeah, I mean, I feel like social media made it possible for small businesses to compete in marketing with the big time players. Like it literally created a playing field for us to even be able to compete in, you know? And it created like a platform where you can compete on creativeness, can compete on hard work, you can compete on so many other things that aren't necessarily just budget and money. And that's where like my quote that I always say is, what you lack in marketing dollars, you make up in creativity and hustle. So, and that's literally, social media is a perfect place for that. Like, you don't need a lot of money to take really cool photos, to take creative videos, to create like cool content for people to learn about your brand, to learn about you, learn about your story, learn about what you're doing, and kind of decide if they want to align with your business mission or not. So yeah, I'm such a proponent of people utilizing social media, not just as a marketing tool, but also as a networking tool to align and collaborate with other business owners that are on the same, on the same level. Like, don't just try to grow, vertically all the time. Like, sometimes, like, look to your right, look to your left, like look horizontally to see who else is on the same page as you, and team up to grow together and scale up together. And that's one of the biggest resources that I had, that I feel like one of the things that helped Rizo's growth the most, especially in the beginning, was that I found other similar, like, women of color owned businesses that had a similar mission. Maybe they were in a different industry than me, but we kind of created little like coalitions, little like networks, and we would help promote each other. Like, we would do giveaways together, we would do events together, and so quickly their customers became my customers became their, like, we were literally interchanging our customers, our followers, and all of us, especially, I started this crew back then called Las Jefas crew. Las Jefa means girl boss, like, so it was we called it like a girl boss crew or whatever. And then we're all like, small business owners, and it was crazy because we all started around the same time, and we've all been growing like at the same rate at the same time. And we literally started as like, we have like 100 followers. How are we going to do this? Like, what did you learn? What did I learn? Like, and you're not recreating the wheel, you're building off of each other's things and helping. So I think for people, like, that's one of my biggest recommendations is like, find a network, find accountability partners, find other like-minded businesses where y'all are strength is in the numbers,
That's good advice. I love it. Social media, the power of social media. I don't know if you remember when I connected you with a homegirl out at Harvard. I remember you were doing the workshop at Harvard, and I connected you with her. She was from San Diego. I met her out here, and she was doing her master's out there. And I've seen you guys have, connected and staying close, and that's awesome. I forgot her name at this point too. But,
yeah, no, I think a lot of times when people feel like weird, even like asking for help, asking for advice, or like trying to work together with other people, like especially like, I feel like I see so many, especially like women, like events and like networking and stuff. And I feel like a lot of the times, like, we'll have like a couple of guys come in there every once in a while. And whenever guys do come, they're always like, no wonder y'all are killing it over here. Like, we need this too. Like, why don't more guys come to this shit? And we're like, this is not just for women. Like, this is for all of us, but y'all just over there just not joining us. Like, come over. Like, we're not. So I think that's like, accountability partners like that is so essential for anybody. And it's not gender exclusive. It's just being more open to it,
Yeah. It was Vidiana. Vidiana is her name. Vidiana, and then shout out to Lindsay Day from Crown Magazine, all the lady bosses. So yeah. All right. So we're coming to conclusion. So tell us what's next for the Rizo's Curls. What's next for you as a business owner, entrepreneur? And then give us where can we find you? But I want to hear what's next. What's next for the business and you, because I feel like, you're at a point where you can start to brand, you can take what you've done and brand that in itself, and I've seen a lot of people start to do that. Like, you say like a Morgan over at Blavity and Afrotech, right? I follow her, and she's really taken that momentum that she's built, and now she's doing like entrepreneur series. I've seen So just go ahead and, what you
Yeah.
got?
So that was like, in February, it was actually like for my birthday, I threw a small business summit in LA, where I curated like workshops with some of like the biggest companies that I attended workshops with them and that helped me. So for example, like Instagram owned a workshop, Facebook did a workshop, and BuzzFeed, like the BuzzFeed team, like they came and did workshops at my event. And seeing the amount of like, and then literally every single vendor, every single business in our goodie bags, every single person there was a person of color. Like it was crazy, the power to see of like everybody speaking, everyone, like every single person, like every food that you ate, every service that you got, every item in those bags, like every touch point was a person of color. And to kind of see that power and be in a room with like so many people and like see the power our community has, like when we all work together, it was just really beautiful and empowering. And I'm so happy that I was able to throw that literally right before like Corona and like quarantine and all this hit, like that was on February 23rd. Yeah, our event took place in downtown. So I definitely want to do more of this. Like right now we're doing, like, for me, I always say Rizos Curls is curls community culture. It's not just about curls, it's about its other two aspects as well. And that's very important to me. And especially during this pandemic that we're in, I think it's very important that I have lived that balanced life with my business. So right now we're doing a Rizos Curls Give initiative where we partnered with a local nonprofit in LA that is youth ran, that we've worked with many times in the past, but we're called Let's Give. And we're working with them to provide different services right now during this pandemic. The services range from like not just monetary donations for families in need and farm workers, but also like translation services for people that are struggling, understanding, and filing for any of like the COVID-19 relief grants and things, government funds out there, tutoring services for their kids that are now homeschooled and, taking classes on Zoom, and like so many other types of services that we're trying to provide for the community. So that's another really big thing that I want to continue doing is all the philanthropy and the, like what you mentioned, like empowerment events and new products. So I'm definitely coming out with a number of new products by the end of the year that I'm super excited about. A lot of new innovation and new technology that I want to bring into hair care.
Awesome. That's beautiful. I love it. And where can give us the hashtags, the social media handles?
Yeah. So to buy Rizos Curls, you can shop us at Target or on rizoscurls.com. To follow us on Instagram, we're at Rizos Curls, and on Facebook, we're at Rizos Curls Hair. Everything is bilingual, English or Spanish. And even sometimes other languages too. We got French. We got like we've got all kinds of help over here. So just let us know any styling tips, hair care needs, etc. We're here.
That's great. That's perfect. And for us, you can always follow us at Nesbypreneurship on Twitter, on Instagram, Facebook. We're Nesby Entrepreneurship SIG, on LinkedIn as well. Jayden, do you have any parting words or comments or plugs?
Yeah, just make sure you take care of your hair.
Yeah.
Because right now I'm kind of like growing out my hair with this whole quarantine that's going on. I'm like, man, like, here we go again. I got to figure out what products I need to put in my head, But yeah, this was a really great interview. I learned a lot. I mean, so much information. Like, I got to rewatch this video because it was just spending too much game on here. So, just besides, our First Tuesday events. So we do this thing called Virtual First Tuesdays every first Tuesday of the month. Entrepreneurs, professionals, investors, business owners, we all get together online. We learn from one another. Like Brian was saying, he has a presentation he's going to be talking about this upcoming Tuesday. And afterwards, we do a pitch competition. So anybody has a chance to pitch their company or a business idea that they've been thinking about. They get feedback right then and there, and whoever wins gets a nice little shout out in our newsletter. So yeah, so we got that going on too.
Okay, and you know, nationally, we're still planning on moving forward. Or first off, you can always follow us at the link up. We're on Apple, we're on Spotify, we're on Anchor. So for those that are YouTube, it's under, you can just type in Nesby Entrepreneurship. You can type in Julissa's name, whatever, you know, however they find it, anybody else's name, you can just, you know, look up Entrepreneurship, Nesby. But nationally, we're still planning on doing our pitch competition. So Julissa, we're having a pitch competition at our national convention. We have over 10,000 Black engineers that come to our national convention every year. You know, within our entrepreneurship group, we have over 20,000 people that are, you know, follow our database, right, that we have access to. So we've reached out to them to see who has the best pitch idea within the organization. So we're narrowing it down to 5 pitchers. We're gonna, you know, look to bring in investors and really start to grow our own talents, right? Our own culture and community. So exactly like you talked about with your journey, running into the chemist that represented you. And I feel like it's very similar. And we have this talent, and a lot of the investors, the VCs, may not come from the same background and may not understand the true value of creating, or there's no ROI in making something, you know, specific, but it makes sense for us. So, you know, we have a pitch competition coming up. It's either going to be virtual or it's going to be in person in San Antonio. Once we get more details, stay tuned for our newsletters. And, you know, once again, thank you very much, Jay. I'm glad we got to chop it up. Hopefully, you know, when things clear up and we can connect in person. You know, I love the growth. I love getting and seeing it grow and all that. So, you know, I got to get my products in here. I got to get my Rizos in here. I should have had my bottle right here on the table, man. See, next time I got to put a bottle up in here, but I'm going to definitely support, and I appreciate the advice. You know, I can, you know, take care of my baby's hair and do all that.
Well, thank you guys so much for having me. It's such a pleasure. I'm honored to be here with you guys today. All right. Well, you stay safe, have fun out there, and we look forward to seeing Rizos grow. So, you know, as much as we can. Thank you. Likewise. Bye, guys. All right. See you later.
All right. See you later.
Peace.
Bye.
All right.